Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Deep Focus Show. I'm Clayton.
And I'm Andrew.
Today, we're going to be talking about, we're doing another television series. If you haven't caught the Simpsons episode that Tavi and Andrew did together, that one's out there too. But this is going to be a little bit of a darker series. We're doing Black Mirror season 6, and we're going to rank all 5 episodes, I believe there are. We're just going to tell you our favorites, what we thought about the series overall. Andrew, what did you think of season 6 compared to the first 5 seasons?
Um, I mean, I think there's always something that of value to take away, I find, from every season. Some I like more than others. I think this one maybe had a little bit of an advantage over the last season because we got 5 instead of 3. So,
Yeah.
better chance of having a couple hits in there. Um, I'd say I know this is a controversial season overall, but I would say I might give it to the edge over at least the previous season. But it also wouldn't be my favorite season either.
I would agree. Yeah, it's missing something, in my opinion. They have some fun episodes, but it's missing sort of like a heartfelt, like Hank the DJ or San Junipero. I kind of wish they had something like that in there. But I mean, overall, it was fine. Not Didn't really live up to the hype, in my opinion, but it was okay. Probably the second to last season overall, in my opinion. Season 5 just didn't have that much meat and potatoes with it, so that's why.
Right.
Andrew, you want to go ahead and kick us off with your least favorite episode? There's 5, so
Yeah, so this is probably a bit of a hot take because of what isn't in last, and because this one seems to be thought of somewhat highly, at least by what I've read, for being more in the Black Mirror vein. But my number 5 is Jonah's Awful.
mm,
Um, and if it isn't apparent already, ticking off the conventional Black Mirror box that, with the technology and stuff, it's not really my highest consideration. I tend to view the show much like I do predecessors like The Twilight Zone, and just kind of embracing that it could really be about almost anything and giving us a cool ride. If it hits on something more profound about society, that's a bonus too, because Black Mirror is often very good at that. Uh, thus far, I've always found something worthwhile in a Black Mirror episode. I would say it's not an exception here. The basic premise is quite engaging from the start. We get a glimpse into a day in the life of this office executive, and then it just so happens this AI generated show replicates and distorts her experiences in real life to make her look 10 times worse. I think my biggest issue with this one is just the style of humor. It's just not my cup of tea. There's more of this over the top kind of meta comedic tone and mixed with a very like a helplessness of the world being against you. And I think that combination comes across as a little mean spirited for my liking or something. It's the kind of thing I see why it would hit the spot for many. It'll just not be my go-to. And I think plot wise, I do feel the narrative collapses a bit into itself by the end of it, without getting into details. Um, Rather than like getting complicated with what level of universe we're in or whatever, I think I would have appreciated a more subdued take on this issue with respect to like, you know, the contract that she signed and technology being virtually inescapable in our daily interactions. More commentary on that than kind of where it ended up going. So, but it's still things to recommend about it, but that's why it's my number 5.
yep. That is my number 5 as well. Jonah's Awful. I, I think it's for what it is. I'm glad that it's the first episode of season 6. It doesn't really like start the season with a bang, but for some reason I don't know why it just works as the first episode. It's about a woman who finds out that her life is being adapted in a television show on streaming. First 10 minutes I thought was really promising, but like you said, it does go off the rails at the very end. Lots of fourth wall breaking, and normally I would like that, but it seemed like they're just trying to make a point on the nature of streaming, and I guess since Black Mirror initially started, probably on the BBC, I think it was picked up by Netflix. I'm not sure why they're doing that. Uh, I didn't like the titular Strainberry app, which is what they call like their own Netflix. It even like looks like Netflix. It has the boom boom intro for Netflix. The main character wasn't really that awful, but I guess that's the kind of the gag. There's this one gross scene that she does for attention on to get like to make sure that the show doesn't air or to humiliate Salma Hayek, who's actually playing the character of Joan in this television show. I really did enjoy her presence, but I think she's a queen in everything that she does. So really like her. But yeah, the ending, it flies too much off the rails for me, and I'd probably give it 2 stars. I didn't care for it that much. But yeah, I pretty much echo all of your sentiments. And it is kind of surprising because this isn't the critical consensus is that there's another episode that I'll talk about later that's at the bottom.
Right. I didn't mention it. I'd probably go 3 stars. I'm pretty friendly to most of the episodes to some extent, but I can't get any higher than that. And I actually watched it last, I believe, because I with Black Mirror for some reason I like to set myself up with what seems to be the most hated and work my way up. And that one seemed to have a pretty good reputation. So I don't know if the order may have changed my thought on it, but my number 4 would also be the one I watched first because of how hated it is. The one most people would have last, I guess. And there's a hairpin turn of a third act twist at the center of it. So that's Maisie Day. Maybe it helps that I watched it first, hearing about the poor reputation, that I was expecting worse. The basic premise is about this opportunistic paparazzi investigating the disappearance of a film actress, and what they stumble upon is way more than they bargained for. I guess I'd start off by saying I'm very supportive of the idea of Red Mirror, which is something we'll talk about a bit later in this episode. And while this one technically didn't bear the label, it's only because of the element of surprise. I don't want Charlie Brooker to feel like he can't cross into that threshold into kind of more supernatural ideas. So once we get that out of the way, we're left with how does the episode execute it? And without having a particular idea in mind, I do feel like there was some lost potential in going the route they did. There were hints of like conspiracy and paranoia that kind of go out the window that I was probably more interested in. But the more primal level situation happens instead. But on the other hand, I don't think it loses the cynicism altogether. So there is like a Black Mirror element to, especially with how they do it in the final shot of the episode. And it's also quite short and fairly to the point. And I usually do appreciate economy in stories like this because, I mean, none of the characters are that likable, so we don't really want to spend an hour and a half with them. But for 40 minutes, that's not bad. And I guess it's a point in favor and against it. So again, it's probably about 3 stars. I think it's overhated, but I also don't think it's, what I love about Black Mirror at its best. So
Yeah, I did have some sympathy for the lead actress. I mean, at first I didn't like her, but I'm not talking about that yet. I have Lock Henry as the second to last. This episode was so perplexing to me. It kind of reminded me a lot of American Horror Story. It had sort of that Ryan Murphy camp, but it sort of loses that at the end. It's just kind of a devastating ending. But it has one of the actresses from the movie Bodies, 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 which I loved. I love that movie, and I love her character here. Her fate doesn't really end well, but not to get into spoilers. The basic description is a young couple travel to a sleepy Scottish town to work in a genteel nature documentary, but find themselves drawn to a juicy local story involving shocking events of the past. There's this one long sequence in a bar, just kind of expository, in my opinion, just explaining the whole lore of this town that they find themselves in. I thought that was a little bit intriguing to a degree. It does fall short of my expectations, though. I did enjoy the twist at the end. And there's this scene where this girl was basically enclosed in a house with no way out, and I could probably definitely relate to her in that situation. It was quite creepy, to say the least. Of course, Streamberry, the Netflix lookalike, comes back here. I don't know what they're trying to do with the Streamberry thing, but I think this is like the second time they mention it in this whole season, and I kind of get annoyed by that. Wish they would drop that aspect. I found the ending a little bit sad, and it just left me feeling a little cold. More so than an episode that has a much darker ending that I'll talk about later. I would probably go 3 stars. This season, it's lacking something for me, and this did not feel like a Black Mirror episode to me. It felt very much like American Horror Story, in that regard. But yeah.
All right, nice. Yeah, I think that episode, it even mentioned Netflix at one point and also had Streamberry, so that was really confusing.
Oh wow, didn't catch that.
I could be mistaken, but I think I heard that when they were talking earlier. So my remaining 3, I would say, were episodes I genuinely like enjoyed and most likely to revisit at some point. My number 3 is the first official Red Mirror episode, which means that Charlie Brooker is kind of leaning more into the horror side of things and not just the sci-fi that he has tended to do with Black Mirror. And so that's Demon 79. And I thought it was a pretty playful and substantial tale while still feeling like it belongs. Consider it like what I'd be looking for in a contemporary update on the Twilight Zone or something. So you have this reserved department store worker who inadvertently summons a demon, obligating her to kill 3 people in 3 days or else it'll be the end of the world. That's basically what we're dealing with here. And I like the humor, kind of how it was slid in on this one more, like the demon manifesting as her dream guy or contending with the technicalities of what the rules are and stuff like that. But it also plays like its serious aspects, with gravity too. The dynamic between the 2 leading characters, I thought it was kind of charming in like a twisted way. It raises some questions of like utilitarian theory and what an individual is worth, like an individual life. And there's also some satire in the politician character, and get shades of like this crime thriller movie and the situations involving like the potential victims. So yeah, this one was a fun ride. I think I might even jump up right to 4 stars on this one.
Very nice, very nice. That is my next one too. It was a little bit confusing. Just I'll talk about that later. I appreciated the 70s aesthetic in this episode. I really dug that. I loved our lead, although at times I found it a little bit hard to root for her. And like you said, it's about this woman who encounters and opens up a demon. She says the demon says that if she doesn't kill at least 3 people, I think like 3 days, then the world's going to end. And I like this episode kind of keeps you on your toes. You don't know if the lead is crazy in imagining this or if the demon is actually real. And by the end, you find out, but I'm not going to spoil that. It seems like a simple enough premise, but as the episode progresses, the rules made by this demon seem to change a little bit. Like, for example, she can't kill someone who has killed other people. And that was like added in the rules after her first kill. I wouldn't say this episode's really political that much, but there is a political figure in here. And I kind of like that dynamic between the main character and the person that she doesn't like very much, and she's like really adamant on killing this guy, but then things kind of go awry. I like the costumes in this episode. I'm not sure what pop culture icon of the 70s they were trying to make this demon character in, but it worked. I needed a little bit more, and it did feel like the writers didn't exactly know where they were going with the story, except by the end of it. And I mean, I liked it. I enjoyed it. I'd probably go 3.5. But I really like. Upon thinking about this, I thought the next episode would take the spot, or the next episode I'm going to talk about would take the spot. But I kind of flipped them around last minute because I don't know. You'll find out what my next episode is in a second, but yeah, Demon 79. That's what it is. 3.5. Yep.
Thanks. We'll have quite a bit of a different order. That's kind of fun to have once in a while.
Yeah.
So my number two, I'm predicting this is going to be your number one, but we'll have to see. This is Beyond the Sea, and it's space age, like period piece mixed with like pretty heavy sci-fi in this one. Tells the story of two astronauts who work far from Earth but have this ability to like inhabit a mechanical clone of themselves for some real world interaction with their families and stuff. And reminded me at times a bit of the movie Moon, which a movie I love, and but it has that signature bleak and depressing element that we often see in Black Mirror too. Um, Trouble starts when one of the men is, without getting into details, victim to this horrible tragedy on Earth, and that renders him unable to like mentally escape the ship, unless of course he borrows the other guy's body. And what starts out as like this gesture of kindness soon becomes a bit more complex, and when it gets dark in ways that maybe you don't even expect. Like you think something's going to happen, but I was surprised with the direction it ultimately went. And this is a long episode. It really feels like a well-told, like modest budget feature film. So I really enjoyed it. I think it's a really solid Black Mirror episode, and I would recommend checking it out if you like any of the previous seasons.
What was that movie you mentioned? Moon?
Moon with Sam Rockwell. Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah.
Because that is my number one, which means Maisie Day. No, Maisie Star is my is it Maisie Day or Maisie Star? I'm thinking about I think
Easy day.
yeah, Maisie Star is a musical act. Yeah, Maisie Day. That's my number two. This episode, there's yet another twist ending here. Um, it's pretty straightforward in its commentary, though. Paparazzi equals bad, basically. I think it's unfair to say that this is the worst episode of Black Mirror. But compared to other episodes, it's probably weaker, which really is a sentiment to how much I didn't really enjoy this season very much. Every episode here is probably better than the second episode of season five, though. I really didn't like that one. But I did enjoy the mystery behind the actress and sort of the cat and mouse between the paparazzi and her crew with the crew of the actresses. And yeah, it's I don't want to spoil the ending, but it's pretty camp. And it's the shortest episode of the series. Not I don't know if it's the shortest episode of the entire series, but definitely of the season. Series five. It's quite straightforward, quite simple, pretty cut and dry, but it's very entertaining. The ending is a little bit brutal, a lot more brutal than I expected it would be. I can understand how some people would find this episode annoying, I guess, but it's fine for what it is, and I really enjoyed it. Probably between a 3.5 and a 4 star here. It's fun. I would watch it again.
So if you've been keeping count,
Mhm.
my last one is your number four, which is Loch Henry. And as you mentioned, it surrounds like this young couple who are also documentary filmmakers. I think pretty much like straight out of film school or whatever. And then they go back to the young man's like home village for a story. But when the young woman hears of a horrifying true crime story that took place in the local area, she wants to pursue that. For me, this one kept me on the edge of my seat, wondering how it's going to all go wrong. There's a mystery component with red herrings and clues dropped throughout, and also features, a fair bit of commentary on the public fascination with true crime and the darkest aspects of human behavior. Out of all these stories, this is probably the one I most want to protect from spoilers. If you like a good mystery thriller, have a fascination with true crime, I'd definitely say check it out. And I don't want to talk about what happens in the last act, but let's just say there's a moment involving footage that still gives me the chills. Probably one of the most visceral moments I felt in the series. So I think that's why between someone who kind of likes the thriller genre and just kind of the impact that it had, I think that's why it was able to be my favorite of the season. And I'm usually more generous with episodes because I don't know. I like the compact length of it. I feel like a film really has to earn it, but if you can, you know, give a nice ride in 40 minutes to an hour, then I'll be happy. So I'm going to go 4.5.
Very nice, very nice. That was probably the second longest episode of this season. Not
I
sure.
think maybe, yeah.
Cool. Well, that leads me to my number one, Beyond the Sea. This is the Black Mirror I wanted more of. I think it has such a unique premise. You touched on it a little bit. Two spacemen are out on duty in space, and they're able to transfer basically their consciousness into a clone on Earth to communicate with their family. It stars Aaron Paul, who's doing a lot in this episode. Basically, one of the spacemen gets his clone destroyed on Earth after home intruders sort of left a tragic event in his family. He lost his wife and kids, but that happens early on in the episode, so it's not too much of a spoiler. So he's all alone in space, and then Aaron Paul agrees to let him use his clone to enjoy peace and quiet on Earth. And get him a little bit in touch with nature, and then things just get a little messy. And the ending, oh, did not expect the ending of one of the better twists of this season. The acting is superb because Aaron Paul's basically playing two characters. He's really just he's doing a lot. There's a lighthearted tone to this episode, which is ironic because the title is called Beyond the Sea, and I think they even use that song somewhere, Beyond the Sea. But this lighthearted tenderness is juxtaposed with the twisted logic a character makes up at the end and the terrible state that this guy is left in the wake of this tragedy. And I liked it. It was entertaining, engaging, kept me on my feet the whole way through. And yeah, I would recommend it. I'm also going 4.5 as well. I think if I had to rank all of the seasons, it would be 5 last, then 6, then 3, then 4, then 1, then 2. I had to rank them.
I'd have to think about it, but I'd probably go, I don't know, maybe, I don't know where White Christmas falls because it was kind of its standalone special, but say if you count it as part of 2, then I guess it would be 3, 2, 1, 4, 6, 5 or something like that.
Nice. Very cool. Well, thanks you guys. Appreciate y'all watching. Leave like a comment if you've seen Black Mirror. What are some of your favorite episodes? Have you watched season 6 yet? If so, just let us know what your favorite episodes on that are. Andrew will be coming on. I think we talked about doing Christopher Nolan, so hopefully that comes to fruition pretty soon in the future. We're busy, of course, but we'll make it work. And yeah, thanks everybody. See you later.
Thank you.